All right, so we did all that work, putting the D16 back in the EG, fired it up, and the engine is no good. So where did I go wrong? You know, hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, I can see the signs, and let's take a look. Oh, another day, another lesson. Here we are, learning with Robbie. All right, so let's start from the beginning. This motor was found on Craigslist, and it was just some dude selling the engine. It was a very basic post. It showed like 4 pictures of the motor, and then it just said, runs fine. You know, I get it. All you tough guys out there like to say just a few words, runs fine. All right, so obviously it's really hard to tell, you know, based off of texting someone and then calling someone, exactly who that person is. Obviously, I've never met this guy. So I called him, he seemed like a legit dude. So we went down to check out the motor. Thankfully, it wasn't that far away from me, just like a 40-minute drive. So we went to check it out in person. Now, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, like I always am in these videos, okay? This is where my inexperience in all this comes in. The motor was already out of the car, and I had never dealt with anything like that before. The used cars that I've bought, the engine's always been in, I've been able to turn it on, see how it runs. So of course, that sketched me out in the very beginning. But so I learned a couple tricks, you know, like spinning the crank, just opening up the valve cover, making sure everything is there, nothing's like super loose or anything. So what we did was just separate the trans and the motor, and I was able to spin the crank, and everything spun just fine. What I've heard is that when you're buying an engine out of a car, you want to go ahead and spin that, because if the bearings are damaged on the inside or they're spun or something like that, you'll spin the crank and then it will actually seize up because one of the bearings is starting to overlap on another part of the bearing. And so this engine just spun, man. I just kept spinning this thing probably for like 5 minutes straight, and the dude was like, hey man, it spins. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. You know, I just want to make sure that this is what it is. But so here's something that I was not familiar with at the time, and a lot of you guys seem to already know about, was this VMS lightweight crank pulley. Now when I saw this, I was like, okay, it's just an aftermarket pulley, lightweight, great, right? I've never heard of that before. I've never dealt with it, nor looked into buying one, so I knew nothing about it. Obviously, instantly, a lot of you guys were already like, whoa, you know, dude, stay away from that. It could cause really bad, like, shake in the crank. It's not balancing everything in there. Just when you're revving it high, it's no good. It can damage the bearings, again, you know, if it's run hard for a long time. I didn't know that. I went in and I saw it. I'm like, oh, cool, it's a performance part on this thing. Awesome. I didn't realize that all of those problems can occur, and who knows how long this guy had been running this motor with that pulley on it. Now, the guy also mentioned that this motor did have a really bad oil leak. Now, me, you know, I'm like, okay, well, it's gotta be a seal, right? Like, you know, sure. We went ahead and looked at the rear main seal when we had separated the trans and the motor, and it was obviously dripping from there. Like, I was sure that the rear main seal was just not installed correctly, or maybe it was pinched or broken, or who knows, you know, who knows with those seals. But so I'm like, okay, this is gonna be an easy fix. And when I was like, oh, I just gotta change out the rear main seal, and the guy was like, yeah, that'll do it. And looking back on that, I kind of wonder if he was like, yes, I sold this guy, you know, and I'm sitting here like a dumbass, being like, oh, it's just the rear main seal, blah. You know, who knows? Maybe that's all it was. Obviously, we never got to run the motor long enough to be able to tell. I changed the rear main seal out, who knows? But this thing was really full of oil too. Like, he topped it off way past the second little line on the dipstick. And I remember asking him, I'm like, why is there so much oil in this thing? I wonder, was he running it while this thing was leaking super bad, but he just put a bunch more oil in it? Maybe this thing was even smoking like crazy as he's driving it, you know, who knows? And it's just leaking, because he told me, he's like, you know, there was a good line coming up my driveway every time, you know? And, you know, looking back on that, I'm the fool for, obviously I'm the fool for buying this, you know? But hey man, it's a learning experience, right? So what I'm wondering, and what Theory from RHD Performance was talking to me about, is maybe, you know, this guy was running this thing super low oil for a long time, or he just didn't realize it and he's out there ripping it and it was running low oil. And so he maybe topped it off real high then afterwards, thinking like, oh, I just need to put more in, it'll drain, and I'll put more in. But running it real dry, obviously, is not gonna be a good thing. So now I do want to say, like, I know that this can be rebuilt. I can take this and, you know, get a new crank, all that kind of stuff. I've read about, you know, people polishing the crank, putting the new bearings in it, all that kind of stuff. For me right now, I'm not ready to get into that kind of work. I have never opened up an engine to that extent. I have never rebuilt an engine. I understand you can learn, and I understand all the tools are out there. But I am not ready to get into that at this minute. I do, however, think that would be really cool for someday. But so, you know, I have different ideas, you guys. Like, I'm thinking I may well keep this for that kind of thing. Like, maybe we could get into a series on this channel where we start getting into learning how to rebuild an engine. Like, what do you all think? Would you like to see that? Are you interested in that? Let me know. Put a, you know, thumbs up on this video or comment or whatever, let me know. I just want to put out there, because there's a lot of new people on this channel. I have zero technical training when it comes to anything auto mechanics. I am the definition of a home DIY mechanic. All right, so, you know, some of you may be like, oh dude, it's so easy to rebuild a motor, just do this, 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 this. Great. I don't know that. I've never looked into this yet. And, you know, obviously that costs money as well. So, I mean, I'm chalking this up as a learning experience, you guys. I'm sure some of you are gonna be like, ah, you freaking idiot, you did all that, you did all this work, and it doesn't work. Hey, it is what it is, man. I'm learning. You know, I don't know, if you're gonna bash on me for learning and making a mistake, then man, you can just get out of here. Because if you've never made a mistake doing this kind of stuff, come on. But anyway, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, thankfully I have some really good friends in Travis and Juan and Dusan, and I know with the help of those guys, we're gonna just take this thing back out once I get my new one, obviously, and we're gonna put it back together super quick. And for these videos, I'm not gonna kill you guys with doing all that stuff over again. You know, I know that was dragged out. Maybe it was on purpose. But anyway, so yeah, we'll see what I end up getting. Obviously, I'll be videoing that, and I'll be updating you guys with that process of getting the new motor and where I get it from and all that kind of stuff. All right, so this one's decommissioned at the minute. I actually need to go ahead and do some basic maintenance stuff to the EK, and we haven't seen anything on that in a long time, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do the oil change with the Purelator filter there. I got a new distributor cap and rotor, and then I also need to do some coolant. And then I also need to do the spark plugs here as well. So we'll go ahead and change that out and maybe do a cool little video with that. This is a different view, right? You're not used to seeing red behind me like that. But so I'm working on my daily. You know, I love my EK, I absolutely do. I've been driving this car for 7 years now, but it's just something about working on your cool project track car. It's just so much cooler. Super stock, you guys. Like, I literally use this for my daily. I just want a good car. I just want a good car that has awesome gas mileage and gets me to work reliably. I've been driving this car for 7 years now. And for those of you who don't know, I bought this off of an old woman who barely drove the thing. She had 24,000 original miles on this when I bought it. And after 7 years of me driving it, I now have 95. cap and rotor on, spark plug's done. Sorry I couldn't really show you some of that. It was kind of difficult getting there and angles, you know. But so now I'm just gonna flush out the coolant and then put some new stuff back on. Okay, so all the maintenance is done on the EK. And just so you know, with the coolant stuff, I drained the old coolant, put the new coolant in, left the radiator cap off, put the heater core, put the heat on the interior all the way on full blast, and then turned the car on. I ran it for like 10 minutes, let this engine cycle through, let all the coolant cycle through, the fan turned on a couple times, and then I added more coolant. So I'll keep some coolant with me. I'll check it, like when I come back from my first trip. All right, you guys, so I know that was just basic maintenance stuff, but hey, I figured maybe you'd want to hang out for like 10 minutes. So I appreciate it if you did, man. Thanks for watching. So obviously we got the project car, that's not going nowhere. I need to look for a motor, and that's what I'm gonna be doing next weekend. I think I have a line on one. I've already talked to a reputable shop around here where they provide a 30-day warranty and I can bring it back if it doesn't work. No, it's not like one of those JDM importers or anything. But so that's what I'm gonna be doing next. I hope you all enjoyed hanging out, doing a little bit of maintenance on the EK, and we will be back to this lump next weekend. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you in the comments.